go. There we go. Let's go here. Okay, I'm going to cheat and look up the screen here. Okay, I take it everybody's able to hear me. My name is Curt. My call sign's WU3U, Whiskey Uniform 3 Uniform. Thanks for everybody inviting me. I'm going to try to address the people at home and everybody here. So I'll be going back and forth here. I just want to make sure that other little screen wasn't going to show up there. Okay. So we're going to talk about APRS. I don't know how many people have done APRS or know much about it. Like I always tell everybody, it's another mode of operation. We have people that are strictly CW people that are FT8, little bit of everything, but it's another mode. Some people have the ability to do it and don't do it. Some people have not done anything with it. It's automatic packet reporting system. Some people say automatic position reporting system also, and it uses your radio to actually send data to the internet and upload your position on a map. You can send text messages. I was driving down the road one day, and all of a sudden my radio started making a noise that I'd never heard before, and somebody was sending me a message, and I didn't even know what to do with it. I had to read the book to figure out, okay, what's this message saying? And he said, hey, Curt, just wanted to send you a message and see if this worked. And I think his name's Rich Rattandy. I can't remember what his call sign is. I haven't heard him on the radio in a long time, but or at least that's his dad's name anyway. I grew up with his sister there, but I was actually shocked to see that. You can also, they'll send weather conditions over it also, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit also. And how does it work? You have a GPS in your radio. This is the Kenwood D74. Also have a FT3, which is from Yaesu. The GPS gets your position. It turns it into serial data, sends it through a TNC, which is a modem. There happens to be a TNC built into this radio. There's some external TNCs. We'll talk about the external TNCs in a little bit. That packet, which they call an AX.25 packet, comes into your radio and or sends it out of your radio via RF, and everything pretty much happens in reverse. I kind of did a little bit of a flow chart that you can see on the screen here. Same thing, just in reverse. Who developed APRS? It's a guy named Bob Berninga, WB4APR. Surprisingly, I never looked to see if he changed his call sign to that or if that was actually his call. He was a Navy guy, real smart guy. This is actually Bob Berninga right here. I don't know if we'll be able to hear this. I'm going to hit the play button. We'll see. Just a quick introduction from Bob himself here. Let's see if it comes on here.
We're not hearing your audio on Zoom. You got to share your audio.
What about it?
Share.
No, for some reason, it doesn't want to work. Anyway, this is Bob Berninga, WB4APR. I'll bring up some of his credentials in a little bit, but he's the guy that designed this. Unfortunately, Bob is no longer with us, but here's his credentials. He had a BS in engineering from Georgia Tech, spent a long time in the Navy. Obviously he was an FCC licensed ham, private pilot, who's kind of did a little bit of everything. He passed away in 2020. Unfortunately, it was from COVID and cancer. There he is sitting there with, I believe, this radio here, not this actual radio, but obviously the D74. He got very closely interactive with Kenwood, and I think he was one of the people that taught Kenwood into adding APRS to their radios. He developed this on a VIC-20 and a Commodore 64, an Apple II. So he kept porting it over, as you can see here in 1982. He did it just to plot U.S. Navy ships. And then after he got that part of it done, he did it for some, they called it connectionless emergency traffic. And then he put it all together and started using it for races, different kind of races that they had. So he went from all this, from the VIC-20 to Commodore 64 to IBM platform, and then he eventually was able to get the North American APRS frequency 144.390 listed by the FCC and everybody else as an area that you would do APRS in. You can do APRS to the International Space Station, but they were smart and they did not use the same frequency, because they would be triggering everybody's digipeters, everybody's eye gates, and everything going past. So it would just blast everybody. Somebody just asked me the other day. They said, "What's the frequency for the APRS on the ISS?" And I couldn't even remember whether they used the same one. But then as I started thinking about it, I said, "Wait a minute, they wouldn't use the same one." And I actually made a contact with them a couple times out in the backyard with the elk antenna and this radio right here. Ward Silver, a lot of people know who he is. His comments were Bob kept pushing APRS beyond its origins. There's a Rosalie White that has something to do with the International Space Station. He contributed to the International Space Station. You know, a lot of us think, okay, what can we do as hams to grow amateur radio and everything like that? Here's this guy that helped develop what they were going to use on the International Space Station. So they kept them, I guess, sort of on retainers, and they used it for the NASA Lunar Gateway opportunities. So he hung in there with them for a long time. This Rosalie said he staple in the new ARISS interoperability radio system, and that's what they're using. In fact, on the ISS now, I know one of their radios is the Kenwood D710, which you can't find one of those around now since there's not really any Kenwood mobiles out there anymore. But you might be able to find a V71 or something. But the D710 is what they're using on the space shuttle with modified firmware. I never found out what they did to modify the firmware, but my guess is they made it easier for those people up there to operate it, and probably limited a lot of it, because what are you going to do? You can't call tech support real easy and say, "Hey, what do I change it to?" So they're using a modified D710. Why would you want to use APRS? And I always say, because we can. Sort of creepy in a way when you think about it. Most of us at our age aren't out doing things that you don't really care if somebody sees, or you're smart enough to turn it off if you're that kind of person that does. So it's fun, interesting, something else to learn in a hobby. Like I said in the beginning, it's like FT8 or CW. They try to bring it into emergency communications, but there's not a lot of people with APRS equipment out there that to grow that in there. You know, people make up their go boxes and everything, and they don't really consider that APRS might be something that they would want to do. So that's that. This is what APRS sounds like. I probably can't get it to
if you take your share whatever the application is that's going to play it,
okay,
then share this, and then share that application that's going to play it. In the bottom left hand,
hold on.
Hit in share. Stop sharing.
Let's see, new share, pause share.
You want to stop sharing this?
Yeah, let me do that for a second. Okay.
Okay. And then go to share again. It'll give you the windows.
Share screen.
Yeah, you see all the options. Pick the application.
Oh, share sound.
Yeah, you want to click that box, but you also then want to click the application that's going to play your sound.
Okay.
Might be the same one, but click this in the bottom.
Microsoft APRS presentation. Okay. Let's try this again, see what happens. Looking for my. Okay, we'll see if it does it. Okay. You guys can't hear it.
Like FTA.
Yeah. I don't have any other way of showing you guys. Yeah, you'll hear some quick screeches and things like that. 1200 baud.
Oh, 1200.
Yeah. You see here. Yeah, it's coming over there, but it's not. Okay. Yeah, we'll do it. But they can hear it online. Okay. So okay. So this is what APRS sounds like. I mean, my ears sound like APRS all the time because they ring. So, but this is just an example. You can see up there this is the TNC right here. Backup TNC. I'll get into it in a little bit, but Dan KB3FCZ, who is actually on the meeting here with us, he has a very good site up in West Michigan, and I have my equipment there, so it's kind of been a joint effort between him and I. The antenna's at 1,320 feet, something like that. It's a pretty good spot up there. But when we're done, anybody wants to hear it, I can play that. There's only a couple. There's one more slide that has sound on it. This slide here, and I have I'm one of those people that leaves a screen protector on stuff. This one's coming off because it's got crud all over it. Anyway, you wonder how many people use APRS. Well, this was a Dayton this year. And if you watch the screen, you're not going to be able to hear all the beeping and everything. But if you watch right above 144,390, these are all the people that are coming into my radio APRS. I was actually waiting out in the line to get in the first day, and I thought, I'm gonna, while I'm parked here and not really moving, I'm gonna take my phone and at some point in time, if I do a presentation, you'll be able to see how many people are on APRS. So even though maybe not a lot of people in this room do APRS, it gets hammered away out there. I mean, I feel sorry for the people that run their digipeters because it's really taxing their equipment out there. So this will just be continuous. Every now and then you'll see a message pop up. There may have been one already when I looked away, but some of the people I think were purposely over transmitting because you'll see the same call sign come up a bunch of times. There's a message there. Ham mention our bus, Kilo Yankee 4 Oscar Papa. So this is just an example of very busy APRS. There's somebody else coming in. What do you need to do APRS? Obviously, you need a radio. Some radios have built-in TNCs. Bill, I know he has a Yaesu that has it built in. I have the D710 Pat AB3IK there. He has a FT. Is that the 400? Yeah, the FTM 400. I'm not good on Yaesu's things. So you either have a built-in TNC, which is just your modem, or you can do an external TNC. Couple examples again. This is what you use on a lot of like the digipeater sites. Has a USB port on the back for programming. Then it has like a 25 or 9, just as a 9-pin to break out the audio and the transmitter stuff and everything on it. There's a company called Bionics. They make something called the Tiny Track 4. This is a little mini TNC, and if you want, you can put a display on it. Believe it or not, this Bionics company, the guy that owns it, his name is Bion, B-Y-O-N. And I've never heard somebody named Bion, but he got a pretty cool name to be able to call a piece of electronics equipment Bionics. On here, one side is power for the TNC and your radio, so you can plug in a DB9 in here. And then on the other side, if you're just using it in the car, obviously you don't have a computer, so maybe you're just transmitting your signal, so you don't really need the other port. This port's a programming port, and it also allows you to hook up a GPS if you want. Some people use this in a home application. When I first started out testing my system, I used one of these. I don't think you can buy them right now. I think that guy's had supply chain issues like everybody else, but the guy has, for fairly reasonable price, I think these things are $130 or something, and the display's probably $40 or whatever. But Bion, he's a good dude. You can get in here and do all kinds of special programming. If you don't have a GPS and you're going to use it from a fixed location, you can put in your GPS coordinates so it'll transmit out. Where Dan and I are doing APRS with the Cantronics KPC3, KPC3. We have a fixed location in, so we don't need a GPS or anything like that. And you can also do it with a cell phone. Bob AG3U uses an app on his phone, and you can drive around and it will upload it to the APRS site. There's all kinds of interesting ways you can use this. I mean, it's not necessarily the Apple AirTag, but it came out long before that, and it does something sort of similar, but over a better range. You don't have to worry about somebody running around with an iPhone or something like that. You're using RF, and you're transmitting your signal out. Here's some of the radios that have a built-in TNC. Obviously, the D710, the D700, you had to put an external GPS on it because it didn't have GPS built into it. This is the D74, and now I had to modify this because now there's the D75 that has the TNC built in. D72, that was their full duplex radio. A lot of people bought them and worked satellites with them. Can't get those anymore. An FTM 400, which there may still be some of those around. The FTM 500 is brand new. I looked at one at Dayton because I considered maybe it'd be cool to have one, but
the 2 and 300 FTs will also do APRS.
Which one?
The 2 and 300 days.
Oh, they do? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then this is an FT3. This is the old one. FT5, which is the new one. I think the only difference was they made a different color button on the side here and a couple other things. What's that?
The Linko DMR
No, the link. That's another thing I'm going to get into. This is all analog APRS. Some radios now do digital APRS. Here's some pictures. Oh, I forgot to show this. This is the device. I forget what the company name is. I think it's called WeMo or something like that. And this is actually a full APRS device. 1 watt. You can put it on your dog, whatever. He doesn't have to be licensed as long as you are. But right now on here, it says I'm getting 7 satellites. I'm receiving 7 satellites in the building here. And I have my call sign in. I think I made this WU3U-15, and that's something else I'll get into in a minute here. What about a radio without built-in APRS? Again, you have to use external devices to do that. The Kenwood V71 makes a good radio to do that. Any radio that has a data port on it works very well. The data port can connect right up to this device, and you're good to go. You just have to do a little configuration in here through terminal program, put your call sign in, put your location, that kind of stuff. But as long as you have a radio with a data port, I'll let my secret out now that I have enough of them. For the longest time, anytime I'd go to a ham fest, I was always looking for mobiles that had data ports on them. And if you look online and you find a mobile radio with a data port, the price is always more money. Even if you're not going to use it, it's more money on there. So now I have a little stockpile of them in case I need them, but they all have data ports on it. One of the best ones is the Kenwood V71. It interfaces real easy. And again, the external TNC, which I listed there, the Tiny Track 4, Cantronics KPC 3. You really wouldn't want to run around the car with this, but you could do it if you had to. And it can be done by an audio interface. You can take the Bionics device and they make a cable. His cables are like $15, and you can plug it into a microphone port on the radio. But it's difficult to get working because you have to make very sure that the audio output on this is not overdriving the audio input of the radio. And if it does, then you end up with a distorted signal, and stuff doesn't transmit well because you're overdriving the input of the radio. I've done that. I did it with a ICOM IG5100 for a while, and it worked. But once you got it, it was like, I don't ever want to touch this radio. I'm going to use it for APRS. But it's I don't recommend doing it with the audio interface cable. You can do it. It'll take you a little bit longer, and once it works, it's solid. You can walk away from it, but it's finicky, as I put on here. And this is a typical radio with a data port. You can see you can get power. I think you get power out of this. I'm not sure if it's on this one. Now you might have to send a separate 12-volt line to power something like the Tiny Track 4. But there's your audio connections and everything. APRS is 1200 baud, so you would use the 1200 baud data thing. This will actually key the radio, put the radio in transmit mode. It will actually send the signal through over the CTS RTS communications, or excuse me, over the serial input. But it will actually key your radio and make it transmit. So that's what you would do. You would link that up. A lot of this stuff, there's a whole lot more to it than what I'm telling you, but I'm trying to go over the easy part of it just so it makes a lot of sense. When you get into the meat of it, there's some other stuff. Again, I've showed those 3 times already. Tiny Track, well, it was less than I thought, $85. I put that up. I did the slideshow a while back. KPC 250. I'll tell you a story about that in a little bit. There's APRS and there's DAPRS. APRS is analog over the APRS frequency. DPRS isn't so straightforward. Some people do C4 FM. Some people do what's ICOMs.
D-Star.
Yeah, D-Star. You can do APRS over that, but the person with the transmitting gear at that's has the repeater site, if they don't have all that in play, it doesn't work. And I have not found one of them yet that works. So it can be done. Now, if you have a little hotspot at home and you're doing Fusion or DMR or something like that with like the little Alinco G5 or whatever that radio is, you can actually do digital APRS. So it will work over your little hotspot and it'll send the data in and it'll upload to the web. Obviously there's some configuration to do that, but you have to set that up. Again, APRS is currently most widely supported. Nobody calls it that. It's just APRS, but digital APRS is what the other radios will do, the DMR and Fusion. So I put on here, so I have my radio, now what? Ask for help. Tall guy got in touch with me one time and said, I got this radio, he has one of these, and what do I do? I took my lumps a long time before I helped Tall Guy, so I wasn't an expert at it in the beginning, but once I figured out what to do and asked other people myself, then I was able to help him. And I put on here, best practices must be observed. We'll get into that in a little bit because that's a whole other issue. What happens once my radio is configured? Well, you'll start showing up on a map. So as long as you hit somebody's digipeater or their iGate, you will eventually be on the map. This is a map of our area from a while back. You can see the eyes by this call sign. That's KC3ARY. He has an iGate running. Here's KB3FCZ-2. That's one of the bigger digipeters in the area. Skyview has a digipeter, which currently is not working. Bob just found out that you guys took a lightning hit and whacked the KPC3. So hopefully he can get that back up and running. I was kind of hoping it was going to be working for the demonstration, but it is what it is. Steel City had one back here when I did this, W3KWH-10. They disappeared. I might know why, but they're not on the air. So you can go to a website called APRS-FI, go to APRS Direct, and we'll do that. Let's go to APRS-FI. I think this will work here. And we'll do a little snooping around here.
You're only sharing your presentation. So if it's bringing up a browser, it won't show it.
What's that again?
You're only sharing your presentation, so if that's going to bring up a browser, it won't show it.
Oh, I don't know why it didn't change. It changed on my screen. Oh, it's because I got to change the sharing. Let me see if I can do new share and go to here. There you go. Thanks, Brian. So this is the APRS-FI site. We can do some pretty neat stuff here. If I go to here, I actually took this radio. I run a couple different radios in a mobile from time to time. I normally use the Kenwood D710 or the ID5100, right now I have the ID 5100 in, so I can't do APRS on that without doing audio and everything. So what I did was I took the Kenwood D74 and I connected it up to my antenna. I have a little 2-meter 50-watt amp, and I hooked it up to that just so that I could show you guys what a track looks like. So what I can do is I put my call sign in, WU3U-9, and this is me driving here. It's a little hard to see for the people that are here at Skyview. It's not that line, but you can see me in Swissvale, coming through Churchill, going into Murraysville, and then sort of lost communication. But the interesting thing about APRS.FI is if all these little dots, that's some people call them breadcrumbs, but that's where my radio triggered and hit a digipeater and iGate. So if you rest the mouse on there, you'll see that I went from KB3FCZ-2, you'll see that line at the bottom, and then I bounced over to KC3PIB-10. The reason is KB3FCZ-2, we don't have internet there. So we are relying on other sites to hear us when we pick up somebody and digipede them. So Skyview a lot of times does that for us. So when KB3FCZ-2 says, hey, WU3U-9 just dropped a packet here, it will come out to here and you guys will upload it for us. So you don't necessarily have to have internet at a site. It helps, but we are just digipeding the signals that we hear. So every breadcrumb that I rest my mouse on, here I went to another site here when I was in Churchill, way down here somewhere. I don't even know if I can get it on the map. No, it's somebody very far south of us picked my signal up and iGated it for me. So every time I rest this, most of the time it'll be through FCZ, but here's Chuck W3YNI, went to him. There's things in your settings that are hops. So I'll show you that in a little bit. I'm set for 2 hops. So I hopped once to W3YNI and he knew that he was my first pickup of the hop and he was to send me on one more time. So every one of these, I'm back to KB3FCZ and it got digipeded by somebody else. There's a couple other spots here, FCZ. So most of what happens over our way, over in Elizabeth and around Pittsburgh, is picked up by KB3FCZ, and then somebody hears KB3FCZ and uploads it to the web. Maybe someday there'll be internet there. It's not a deal breaker for us, but it's there's enough people out there listening to iGate people's digipeded signals that we end up on the internet.
Do you have a digital recording of your QSO with Dan?
No, because this is just my radio saying, here's my GPS position, here's where I'm at.
What did Dan send back to you? I mean, did he say, how you doing today?
It's all automated. So the site, the equipment at Dan's site says, I just heard Curt and he's in for 2 hops. So I'm going to send him somewhere else and they may send him one more place. And then somebody else uploads that to the web, but it's not,
There's no information.
yeah, it's only information. It's not voice or anything like that. So
He's not sending,
no, the radio does it. We'll get into that in a minute. It's really slick how it does it. There's 2 ways you can do it. One way works really well. One way is really annoying, but it works.
So a question, so these digipeders or these iGates, these are just any given hobbyist that decide to set up something?
Yeah.
Okay, I just didn't.
Yeah.
So there's a network of fellow ham hobbyists that all have.
Yeah, I probably should have put a couple slides in there about the digipeders and iGates, but people do this, and part of my discussion is going to kind of narrow that down because there's certain areas that we need digipeders. There are certain areas that we need iGates.
What's the difference?
Because it can, I'll get to it because it'll fall in place
Before
here.
you get to that, the real fast, is the coverage pretty?
Yeah, I'll show you some of the coverage and everything. But a few years back, about 4 years ago, APRS was pretty much a mess. There was not a lot of coverage. Where there was coverage, there was 2 and 3 people trying to do the same thing, and it was a disaster. And luckily, nobody has. I started to get a little bit frustrated because the site that Dan and I have, at least over in the Pittsburgh and the edge of West Virginia and Maryland, does really well. And we quickly saw where there were some problems, and we had to work through them. With most of the people that had digipeaters and iGates decided that they would work with us for the good of the entire system. But there was a couple that did. So we'll talk about that. So let me change my screen share. I don't think, let me make sure that the next slide. Okay. Let me switch my share again here, and we're going to go back to PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so I'm seeing something different than what's on the screen. So something must have happened with the share. Let's go back to here.
Sharing, Curt.
Okay, here we go. I clicked on the wrong thing. Okay, so how does this all end up on the web? There's iGates, short for Internet Gateway, and there's digipeaters. The people that are running iGates, obviously you have to have a radio. So most people have a mobile radio. And then they'll have a TNC, something like this. And software that I recommend is APRS, ISCS. I think that's right. I think I spelled it right. I'm not sure. It's a free download on the web.
I think we have that out here in the shed.
Yeah, that's what you guys are running. So it's a great software program. Couple minor limitations to it, but for the most part, it's not bad. Digipeater just hears something and passes it on. You can do an iGate does both. It digipeats and it gateways the information. At the KB3FCZ site, we just have one of these, and all it does is when it hears somebody's traffic, it knows whether to digipeat it or not, and it either listens to it and ignores it, or it listens to it and sends it on. So that's kind of what the digipeater does. And I always say it's like a cellular network. It's taking data from field devices. It's all simplex. Because it's simplex, you can have information that will step on other information. So that's the biggest deal with digipeating and iGating. There's no handoff. Again, it's all simplex. Multiple sites may hear the same data as it's being transmitted. Multiple sites may transmit at the same time.
So the protocol works on collision.
You have collisions.
But then does it have an automatic resend if it does get confirmation, or just one shot?
Well, that's it.
There's no,
Yeah.
You don't get a confirmation.
One and done. You transmit your signal. It doesn't really know. It does know if it was digipeated, because you'll get what they call a bounce back, and it'll pop up and it'll say like my position via KB3FCZ-2. So it'll let you know that it bounced back. But you can also, a lot of sites, just like in any amateur radio, sometimes it can hear better than it gets back to your radio. So you may have gotten digipeated and you may have gotten iGated, but you might not have got the bounce back that says, hey, you were digipeated. Some people don't even turn that on because they don't really care if they were. They just want to keep sending the data out. And there's hops, and we'll get into that a little bit. The hops can be a little bit tricky, so I can't explain it as good as some other people, but I can at least make sure that you get the gist of it. Talked earlier, this is on 144.390, so that's what your radio gets set for. You have a call sign and an ID. They've come up with standards. An HT or portable device is typically -7. Your mobile is -9. Your primary station is 0. Additional stations are 2 through 4. So because when we set this up at KB3FCZ, that's not where he lives. So we made it KB3FCZ-2. Weather balloon, or not weather balloons, but actual balloons. These guys will send, they'll launch the small balloons and they'll have an APRS transmitter on it. And I've seen APRS balloons go over. That's really cool. They transmit like crazy, and you'll see all these things, and you'll see it start to zigzag, and it's not on any road or anything like that. It's pretty neat when they do it. A lot of tractor trailers. You'll see. I'll probably go back to another site here in a little bit, maybe, but you'll see people's symbol as a tractor trailer, and I see one guy every day. He goes back and forth from one place to another. He delivers food down in Deep Creek, Maryland, and then he drives back, and then you see him go back and forth. So it's like a truck going to a grocery store every day.
So what's the key? A non-AM from using it?
What's that again?
An unlicensed person, what's the key them from using it?
No, nothing really. I mean,
Are there commercial uses that people, I guess there are. commercial.
you have to put a call sign in.
Okay,
Anybody you could spoof somebody's call sign.
yeah, right, that's what I'm saying.
Did you get a passcode? Yes. You have to have a call sign, yeah.
Yeah, when you set up an iGate
Register.
or a digipeater, you have to have a password. You get a passcode. In fact, that's coming up in one of my slides here on how to get that.
Technically, it can be used on other radios. I mean, I've heard of it being used on CB in Europe. In fact, apparently it's pretty commonly used in CB channels
Yeah.
in Europe. And it could be used in GPRS. And
Yeah, and some people's Wi-Fi or some people's DMR hotspots and everything, if they have that set up, you'll see a little blip on the map for them also. I don't know why they did that. I guess if you wanted to share your hotspot with somebody, but now that they made that passcode protected also, you can't really drive past somebody's house and key up their radio unless you know what they put in for their thing there. Well, I guess you still no, they would either have to share it exclusively to everybody or make it private. So if it's private, couldn't get into it. Here's where things get a little bit sticky with this, and this is what either makes or breaks APRS, and it's the frequency of transmission. You can set your radio to beacon every 30 seconds, 15 seconds if you want. I don't ever recommend doing that. That's the biggest problem that we have of people that have their settings wrong. How do I know? Because I did it wrong first. I shouldn't say that. I was putting too many hops in, and you can if the sites if everything's in alignment, you can hop your APRS signal when you send it, and they'll start picking you up in DC and Virginia and stuff like that. But then everybody gets mad because they see that you're 300 miles away, 200 miles away, or something like that, and they know you're not there. And I see it from time to time, and occasionally I'll get on and email somebody, and I'll just say, "Hey, this is Curt. I'm part of the APRS people here in Pittsburgh, and I just want to find out if maybe you have your settings wrong." And most of the time they'll say, "You know what? I didn't know what I was doing when I did that, and I put in, a hop count of 5 or 8 or whatever, and I just thought maybe that's what I needed to do." I said, "You're in North Carolina and you're making it all the way back here, and you're dinging our network all the time." So if you just see it from time to time, it's not too big a deal, but sometimes it'll be crazy. So smart beaconing, that's what I always recommend everybody using. The radio has the smart beaconing feature built in. When that's on, I always tell everybody, set your beacon time for 3 minutes. But with smart beaconing turned on, if you're driving down a straight road, and let's just say the road, for example, is 50 miles long, your radio will beacon every 3 minutes. That's good enough. You haven't made a turn or anything like that, go ahead and beacon and tell the world that you're 3 miles further than you were before. It's not a big deal. But with smart beaconing turned on, there's settings in there that will allow your radio to beacon if you change course. So even though you're set for 3 minutes, maybe you're going down that 50-mile road and you're 2 minutes and 50 seconds, or let's just say you're a minute and a half in since your last beacon. If you make a right turn, it's going to say, "Oh, wait, my GPS coordinates changed more than X amount of radius," and your radio will beacon. So people get afraid that they're not going to show up on the map good. So they'll put low settings in. They'll put 30 seconds in, or some radios will let you do 15 seconds or whatever. It's not the way to do it. Most things have smart beaconing. This radio has smart beacon in it. This little device here has smart beaconing in it. And part of smart beaconing is also your ground speed even. So if you slow down and you get below 5 miles an hour, it'll say, wait a minute, this guy was going 50 miles an hour and now he's going 5 miles an hour or 3 miles an hour. I'm going to send a beacon out because something's changed. And if you stop, your radio will say, okay, I'm going to send a beacon out because you stopped. It waits a little bit just to make sure that you're truly stopped. And then every 30 minutes, it'll send a beacon. Your car hasn't moved. What's the big deal? Don't send a beacon. Send a beacon every half hour. It's not a big deal. And like I always tell people, we all live in this 1 minute cycle of it. If you look at it this way for APRS, think of a 1 minute cycle. We all have that same 1 minute. Nobody has 80 seconds in their 1 minute. Everybody has 60 seconds in their 1 minute. When you transmit, a lot of times you can be 2 seconds or you can be 3 seconds. And once you transmit, then now you've triggered all of the digipeaters or you've triggered the eye gates to actually send a bounce back. So now on the APRS frequency, that one transmission that you made is, RF all over the place. So you got the thing that I always caution everybody is use smart beaconing. Don't, because that'll keep you from over beaconing. Because I'm going to give an example here pretty soon of somebody who will remain nameless that way over beacons and I can't get him to fix the problem. And we fixed the problem. So, and like I said on here, for MCOM and everything like that, you can do this. It's debatable if MCOM situation, if you should beacon more often. Guess it really depends on what's happening. Again, smart beaconing was designed by these guys, a maker of Ham HUD, which I don't really know anything about it, but while I was trying to research some of the smart beaconing stuff, that did come up. Again, here's your slow speed. You have a slow rate. You have a fast speed, a fast rate. If you're out walking and you're using an HT, you can set the settings that are more geared towards somebody walking. If you take it in your car and you still have it set for somebody that's out walking, you'll start driving the network nuts because it thinks you're walking 50 miles an hour and it starts sending beacons when it shouldn't send them and everything like that, somewhat. So you have to, even with smart beaconing, you have to be a little bit cautious. There's a minimum turn angle. All of the defaults are good for everybody. I've very rarely gone in and told anybody, change something with your defaults. You really don't have
Kurt,
to.
I don't know if you're going to mention this, but if you use RT systems or the ADMS that comes with the AZU, they actually have tabs to put the beaconing stuff
Oh,
in.
okay.
And your whatchamacalls are perfect. I didn't even
Okay.
change very much. I went to smart beaconing, put 30 minutes, and
Okay.
other than that, the settings were all pretty standard.
Yeah, if anybody's questioning how to do this, email me, and I can try to help you out. WU3U@ARRL.net. I'll be glad to help you. There's this minimum turn time. Like I said, if you're driving in a circle, it knows that and knows whether it should or should not beacon. Here's the data hops, and I'm just very lightly going to touch on this. I always tell everybody there's a setting for your data hops. I always tell everybody use wide 1-1 and use wide 2-1. Leave it set for that. Don't make it anything else. Here's an example. I'm going to show a couple examples of that. If you have your hop set wrong, like I said, you can data hop as long as your signal can get from point A to point B. I think you can hop into somebody's eye gate, and because your data hops is set high, I think that it can go across the internet and you can come out in Florida or somewhere like that. So that's another reason why you have to be cautious of that. I can't explain that really well. Rich K3RWN, who I don't think has joined us tonight, he's very good at describing that. I think Auto NO3U, who may be on with us, he's that's probably a specialty of his also. Here's how they explain that. Wide lowercase n dash n, wide 3-1 would have three, would have an n of 3, lowercase n of 3, an uppercase n of 1. The first integer means I'd like to have this packet be digipeated this many times. So digipete my packets 3 times. The second one, second integer means there's this many hops left before digipeating stops. So after you get to one, then I think it's done, something like that. Again, this is not one of my specialties, but I always tell people use wide 1-1 and wide
Leave it on
2-1,
default.
and the world will be fine. Everything will work good. Here's an example of what wide 3-1 could do. The N0 call at the top is going to send a packet out. So he's come into this. Look what he did in the middle. He came in, he got split. He's keying all these digipeaters at the same time, roughly at the same time. So 3 is the maximum. I recommend never using 3. Use the settings that I said there. Complications. Excuse me, guys. I always tell people this is amateur radio's version of a cellular network, except the cellular network has all kinds of backbone in place to manage all this. We don't. And when I first got onto APRS and started looking at everything, I thought things look really a mess here. And I'm not really an expert, but I'm going to learn how to do this and see if we can get some stuff straightened out. I frequently run into people and say, "Hey, you're Curt WU3U, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I ran into Curtis, KB3CMT. He came up to me at Dayton. I never met him before. He said, "You're Curt, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You yelled at me about APRS." And he just kind of laughed. But something he was doing at the time, probably either digipeating too, or probably transmitting too often or something like that. But 99.5% of the cases, people are like, "Hey, thanks for telling me, I didn't know." Because everybody that has something that does APRS wants to get on APRS, but they're not exactly sure what to do. Some of the information that they find online is correct. After all, if it's on the internet, it's truth and it's real. But occasionally something on the internet might not be right. And that's where there's a problem. And I say your stations are firing data at random without consideration to other stations. You have no idea what's going on. If we could have heard the audio like the people did at home through the slide there, sometimes you sit there and for a minute, even if you don't know that people were doing APRS and you listen to that audio coming in, I only turn the volume up when I'm there just to hear what's going on. It's just a free for all. It's mayhem going on, and stuff works for the most part, but you always got to try to keep that to a minimum. And the APRS.fi site that I showed you allows anybody, not just me, to look and see how often are people digipeating. And you can just look at one person and see this is how many times this guy digipeated. Less is more, is what I say. If you use smart beaconing, you're going to get on the map. You're going to get uploaded to the web. You're not going to have any problems. If you think that you're not going to be on there and you use other settings, you're going to be one of the people that all of the other people that look at this say, the guy's digipeating 1 million times a day. Yeah, so that's it as far as that goes. Past and current issues. Number one issue is beaconing too often.
I mean, does it wait until it hears nothing before it transmits, or it's just when it wants to, it just transmits?
It's like a little kid. When it wants to talk, it's going to talk. Or
Wherever
me.
you set it at, it'll just
Typically called asynchronous communication. It just fires. Right.
Yeah.
Synchronous should wait for you to get a token or you get some kind of clear.
So it's the.
And that brings up a good point that I never thought about. You know, some radios have a thing that says, don't key up if there's data. I've never really tested. I don't even know. I'm not even sure if either of these two radios have that option. I would imagine they do. Whether it works with APRS, I don't know. In fact, you guys probably hear that beep every now and then. It's sending my 30-minute beacon because I'm not moving. And probably what's happening is this radio's hearing it and saying, "Hey, WU3U-7 is keyed up," and this is saying, "Oh, I'm WU3U-9." So yeah, because there's no right now Skyview's offline, and some point that'll be back online.
This packet thing, Curt, sounds a lot like packet radio from the early.
That's where it came from. That's where it started.
Same thing.
What do 8 hops that go to Cincinnati,
Yeah.
9 hops that get to Indianapolis?
But you
You can send You can send a string of characters.
Yeah.
And communicate back and forth.
Yeah.
It might take 20 minutes to get there and get back, but.
I
still
get
see-
on mine sometime at home, my 400, I'll get guys from Canada, bees,
Yeah,
come in and their data's on there, which kind of surprises me, but
I still see somebody when I'm doing either the Railpan net or the scanner net on my 9700 off to the side. I'll see a big burst of some kind of data. So there's still somebody around doing packets somewhere.
Oh,
And-
yeah, I mean, it used to be DX Cluster was on packet, it was,
Yeah.
packet bulletin boards, you couldn't
Yeah.
get any AR.
Yeah,
Nobody had, the internet back in the mid-eighties.
we use packet, yeah.
And the KPC3, is that what that is? That was a very popular.
Very popular.
EAPR1, EAPR2.
um, so anyway, it doesn't care what's going on, but I'm gonna test that, Brian. You got me thinking now, would that help things? But I know what would happen. When it would go to transmit, because it's in that cycle, it wouldn't transmit, and it wouldn't transmit till it's time to transmit again, probably. It would just keep it from transmitting if it heard something. So at that point in time, you may not get on the map because it's gonna say, oh, I can't key up because I'm hearing a signal.
Well, the radio's blocking it, but the logic doesn't know the radio's
Yeah.
blocking it. The logic said, send it, the radio said, sorry, I'm receiving, so I can't send.
Yeah.
But the logic doesn't know that.
And with this Bob Berninga being gone, I don't know if APRS will ever progress. I mean, it works and it works very well. There's some stuff that could have been done differently. Whether you can talk these guys or these guys into modifying how APRS works in their radios, another story. So my guess is it's
just
it's
a
going to be, it
collision,
is what it
really.
is.
I mean, it's just a collision, just like in the old packet days, right? You just keep sending it.
Yeah. Yeah. This,
Is there that much traffic that there's issues with this? On a local level?
on APRS.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
On a local.
When we get
level?
done, we'll hear a slow day. When we disconnect from everybody, the people at home
No
probably
idea.
heard it. So beaconing too often is one issue. Second issue is beaconing stuff that's not beneficial to the rest of the network. I've seen people transmit the temperature of their fish tank, so that when they're out in their car, they can make sure that their fish aren't dying or whatever. I've seen people just transmit their shack temperature every 15 seconds, things like that. That's how I've met a couple people because and they still talk to me. So anybody that happens to be online and everybody here, if you hear from me, I'm not being a bad guy. I'm just everybody that wants to use APRS wants it to work good, and that's how we've kind of thinned things out. It was rough for a couple of years, and you start asking people, hey, do you know this guy? No, but I know somebody that knows him, so I'll get him in touch with you or whatever. And some of these people, there's a guy, his call sign will come up here. His name's Brad. I think he was sending weather out, and I'm like, hey, just wondering if you can maybe stop sending weather every 5 minutes. And he's like, yeah, I never really thought about it. I'm like, hey, you're making it. He's in, I forget. I have his slide on here, but he's between Johnstown and Punxsutawney. And he's like, whoa, I'm getting in down there. I'm like, yeah, I can hear you. So I actually met up with him at Dayton. I was getting out of my car and he came up to me and he's like, hey, I thought you weren't coming to Dayton. I said, how'd you know it was me? He said, I saw your license plate. So weather, we don't need 90 people transmitting weather every couple of minutes. Shack temperature, again, all that. Transmitting from a mobile device every 30 seconds. I'll tell you this story now, and we'll eventually get to the slide that shows it. I go through phases where I look at the APRS maps, and then I go through phases where I just don't look at them for 6 months or whatever. But I got on one time and I realized that I was seeing a call sign every 30 seconds. And I was seeing a call sign every 30 seconds, 24 hours a day. And I was seeing a call sign from a local bar and restaurant every 30 seconds for 3 hours. Then I would see it at this guy's house every for the rest of the night. And the guy wasn't turning his radio off. He didn't have smart beaconing turned on, because if he did, every 30 minutes we would get a beacon. So I found his email and I emailed him and I said, hey, this is Curt WU3U. So I just wondered if maybe the settings in your radio are wrong, and I'd be glad to help you get them straightened out. But you're hitting our digipeater 3,000 times a month. And I don't know how long finals could hold up transmitting that often, but sometimes it was less than every 30 seconds. So the guy said, this is what radio I'm using. It just happened to be this style radio. I said, this is great. I have a little video put together. I'll send it to you and show you how to change your settings. I said, all you got to do is change them, it'll be good. So I sent it to him, and I waited about 4 or 5 days, giving him time to change it. He never changed it. So I emailed him again. He goes, my settings are right. I looked at your settings. That's how my settings are. I said, you have one minor thing wrong. So I waited a little bit longer, waited a couple more days, and it kept coming up again. So finally I emailed him and I said, listen, I will meet you at such and such restaurant where he sits and has beers for 3 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
And I will buy you dinner. And you give me 2 minutes with your radio, I'll fix your radio and everything will be good. I'll buy you dinner and drinks. This isn't a way to get dinners and drinks out of WU3U because I fixed the problem with him and it won't happen again. But anyway, I said, it's either going to cost me $250 to buy a PNC to block your call sign. I would rather not block your call sign because it looks like you enjoy using APRS, but you're hammering my repeater, which hammers Skyview, which hammers Steel City and everybody else at their house. And everybody's, this is the end of the month. You've keyed our digipeater 3,000 times, 2,995 times, and you were more the previous month. And the guy wouldn't respond to me. So at that point in time, I sent him one more email and said, hey, before I cut you off, I just want to find out if you'll meet up with me and we'll change these settings. And I never heard back from him. So I ended up having to buy 2 of these because I wanted one of these for fallback. So I ended up buying 2. So it cost me $250 to go in and put this guy's call sign in --, which means if it hears his call sign, just ignores it.
What is
That's
what is this called?
Hmm?
What is this called?
I'll tell you later.
I mean, why would we?
Don't tell us, just write it on the board.
This is why I try to avoid it.
Pay for your RWN.
Anyway, I blocked him. And with KB3FCZ being the most active digipeater that he was hitting, he went from 3,000 hits in a month to 60. Then he started getting into Frank N3FB's digipeater, and I went to Frank and I said, hey Frank, this guy's still a problem because he's still coming into your digipeater. So now Frank has him blocked, and now Chuck W3YNI, he has him blocked. So he gets a couple of hits a month. And since Steel City's offline, I don't think he gets any right now because if Steel City's online, I apologize to anybody at Steel City. I looked, I didn't see your digipeater online, so maybe it's not working, or maybe the finals burn out in it because of this guy because he was still getting in there. But it cost me $500 to fix the problem, $250 to put this in, and another $250 to buy a replacement one, somewhere around there. So anyway, again, it's, like I said on the bottom of the slide, everyone knows whom and where you are while your radio is doing the wrong thing. So it just depends on how you look at what APRS is for. But I had to block them. One of the heaviest users on the APRS is Frank N3FLR, I think. And Frank is a smart dude when it comes to APRS. He's told me a lot of stuff that I needed to know.
Yeah.
And usually anytime somebody says, hey, I see you guys out there and I know you guys deal with the APRS, should I be a digipeater or an iGate? Usually Frank can look into something or I'll look into it. We'll say you'd be a good iGate and don't digipede anything. Don't transmit weather less than 15 minutes, 30 minutes is fine. It doesn't change real fast. Again, people were transmitting weather. You get one guy transmitting weather once a minute. You get another guy transmitting every 30 seconds. That's about 8 seconds of your 60-second cycle. And there's some guy that has APRS running in his tractor trailer that's a ham that his wife could look at him on the map or whatever and see where he's at. He doesn't get through. So just kind of one of these things. We don't need tons of weather stations. It's redundant information.
Yeah.
So I blocked the guy's call sign from here. There's his transmissions, 2,995 times. He was the biggest user into KB3FCZ-2 in a month. And there's Frank 1350. That's high, but that's when you divide that out in a month, that's not too bad. Frank probably is the highest person
That's
in the
all right.
area to use it. Yeah,
Let me tell you, when he was talk on the radio, his system's bad.
yeah. So,
Not Frank.
Big time out repeaters.
and there's John K3MI. He has a small fill-in digipeater and actually fill-in Highgate over in Finleyville. But you can see what some of the other users are there. I was looking to see, oh, there's N3WMC on there.
He uses it too much a month.
You were only 69 that month, which is good. And again, I only look at this every now and then just to see if there's any problems. So I'm not going to go home tonight and check this out. In fact, today was the first time I looked at it in a really long time. Setup issues. Don't be afraid if somebody contacts you and say, hey, I see you're on APRS and I see you're transmitting way too often. More than likely, it's going to be me or somebody else that does that. We're just trying to keep, we have probably one of the better APRS networks in definitely in this part of the US. If you drive anywhere else, you don't get picked up real often or anything, but Western Pennsylvania is really good. We got enough key stations around that's doing good. And I always say stations are paying for power, equipment, internet, and everything like that. Just, I hope that people will be respectful for that. And I put in there, some digipeaters key up 30 times a minute, sometimes even more than that. They're pretty busy. The one nuisance station that transmits too often can also cause the other iGates and digipeaters in the area to retransmit their data. So it's a snowball effect. And again, abusive users can and have been blocked and will not show up as they drive around. So
Wouldn't you think you could put some smarts into your system that you could actually go in and block a call smart?
what about the call center?
That you could put some smarts into your system that you could go in there and actually block the call center.
Well, that's what I'm doing in here.
Access.
I
So
go
what
in.
did that entail to do that?
What about it?
I said, what
Use
do
the
you?
software, you go through the software.
Oh, you connect up a terminal program
Okay.
and you just go, it's line by line.
Okay.
So you go in and I forget what it's called. It's you type it in and then you put call sign dash asterisk comma. And then if you have another one, call sign dash asterisk. As soon as it hears it, it says, I don't know who that guy is. I'm not doing anything with his
Yeah.
packets. They just drop off. Now
And
he's still
using a spectrum.
but he's not keying a 50-watt repeater at
Right.
1300 feet,
Right.
which is the good thing because
Right.
once that keys up, everybody gets keyed up
Right.
and everybody gets tied up. No individual station, this is a joint effort. No individual station can cover the entire area. Each station has their specialty. Everybody must work together. Here's some of these. I apologize if anybody's online and I didn't list you. These are the ones that I grabbed real quick. K3MJW, KB3FCZ-2, Frank N3FB, W3KWH, what I did not see online. These are just some of them. Brad's in Commodore, Pennsylvania, which I'd never even heard of. I think that was right, but it's between Johnstown and Punxsutawney. So here's what the site looks like. KB3FCZ-2, big self-supporting tower. It's right behind the Allegheny County Airport. We're on, I believe, this lower antenna right here. And I think the elevation is about just over 1,300 feet right there. So it hears a lot. What you can't see off to the left is a water tower here. But in that direction, I still get a lot of hits from signals that are down that way. This is what I'm using. I'm using for now, I'm using a Motorola Max Track and this radio here. This device that's here was left by one of the utility companies that used to have something on the tower. It's just, they cut the power cord and everything off of the back of it. It's not used. When I was experimenting with this, Dan KV3FCZ cordially said, once you get that working, take it up to my site and try it, see how it works. So how can I pass it? How can I pass that up? Dan, if you're listening, thanks again. It's a business band antenna, so it's not quite resonant on 2 meters. So I cheated and I put one of these MFJ 2-meter tuners on it. Works perfect. It hears well, transmits fine. SWR thinks it's 1.1 to 1, 1.0 to 1, whatever, 1.1 to 1. So I have redundant gear to put in there. This is a 50-watt Motorola Max Track, and I have a little cooling fan on the back. And I installed that, I don't know, June of last year or something. I was there in September. I just went back a couple days ago, and it just, every now and then I'll turn one of these radios on and send a beacon out and see if it comes back and says, via KV3FCV. There's our coverage. It's kind of hard to see, but it goes above Grove City and down into Morgantown and part of Maryland there. It'll get in down in deep. You'll hear people in Deep Creek. Off to the east, maybe not quite as good, almost to Cadiz, Ohio. That's another thing about the online maps. You can bring up your coverage if you have a digipeater, and you can see how well your coverage is doing. This is a closer look at the same thing. There's like little hot areas here, you'll see. That's where there's lots of activity on APRS. The more, those things can even turn red. So the more use you get in one certain area, it remembers all that, and those areas will turn. So lots of information. Don't have to pay anything to use that site, aprs.fi.
Blue circles are the weather ones too,
Yeah.
because they transmit weather.
Here's Frank, N3FB. He's out in Cannonsburg. He's using a Motorola Radius, I think. I don't have a picture of his antenna, but he has a real nice setup out there. There's his coverage.
You know, if he does that, he's got like 3 linked repeaters for voice. Does he use all 3 of those to APRs?
I don't really know. He sent me that picture, and he just upgraded his TNC to block the one user that was on there. Here's Chuck W3YNI. This is his setup. He has an antenna on his chimney up there. This is his coverage. A lot of overlapping coverage, which is perfectly fine. John K3MI in Finleyville. Right now, he didn't have enough data for me to do the map. N3DXC, Brad in Commodore, PA. He eye-gates my data from time to time from up there. I mean, it makes it all the way up to Johnstown, and he's putting it on the internet for us. This is his coverage. Does a little bit more northwestern Pennsylvania, but he's also getting down to the bottom of the state.
Probably pretty high up too.
Yeah, I think he's on a previous utility company tower or something like that. So here I say, so you want to be an iGate or a digipeater, you don't have to call us. I mean, but if you do, it helps everything. It'll help you. It'll help your station work better. It'll make sure you're doing the right thing. Myself, Frank, N3FLR, any of us will be glad to help you decide what might be the right thing to do. A lot of people just bring them online, and some of them don't really cause any issues, but from time to time they can. Too many digipeaters will fire everybody else's digipeaters and iGates. So sometimes it's best that people are just an iGate. They just hear the signal and upload it to the web. You get credit for doing it. I mean, on the APRS FI, you'll see that it was your station that did it. So it's not like somehow get credit for being out there and helping the cause, so to speak. So we can help you decide what to do. And again, on the end of this, I said keep weather stations to a minimum. What I recommend using if you want to do this at home is this APRS ISCE 32. It's a free program, very small program. I downloaded it today to get a couple screen captures, and I got caught in the same trap that I did when I tried to install it the first time. It'll let you download it. When you double click on it, it'll run, but you get this bar that keeps flashing in the middle of your screen.
It's going to get a certain
So you have to
password
unzip it.
too, yeah.
You got to unzip it, and then it runs fine. And I know I'm running long, so I'll go through some of this stuff a little bit faster. With the APRS software, you do have to get a password, and this guy, APRS ISC owner, Yahoo Groups, he will give you the password that you need to put in there. That is so your data is received on the internet. So it goes out to their servers. If you don't have that, they ignore you. This is your next step, assuming you have a radio, a TNC, and everything that you need there. This is APRS. I'm not going to go into extreme detail. Tall guy had asked me about some of this. You go to this site and download it. APRS ISCE 32. It asks you a couple of things. You put your call sign in the top. You put your passcode in. It's a long 6 or 8 digit passcode. You also have to go in and tell it what power your radio is, what your antenna height is, what gain of your antenna is, and all that comes into play on your maps. So it helps you understand what your coverage is. So they take all that data and they massage it so that it gives you more accurate maps. Because if you're running 50 watts and you say you're a 5-watt station, it's going to look like you're really good, you know. So you really want to make sure that that gets set up like it is. Once you start running the software, this is what it'll look like. And you can sit at your desk in your shack and watch all the people you're hearing in the left side and all the people that you've uploaded to the web. So you get to actually see something happen, even if you're not digipeding, even if you're only just iGating people's data. And that's quick stuff. I don't, it's, I kind of wanted to touch on just the light part of everything so that if you weren't familiar with APRS, you would kind of have a handle on it. And feel free to email me if I don't know the answer, which I don't know all of them. I can help find the answer for you. It's a lot of fun. It is what you want it to be. A lot of people say I would never drive around and have people see where I'm at. No, you're already doing that. You're already doing that right here. You might not know it, but you're doing it.
And
So,
but
that's the basics. Again, it takes all these little standalone sites. Traffic is not policed. It wasn't meant to be, but it's can be a little bit challenging. I've a couple of times thought I'm just gonna turn my stuff off. You know, when you get somebody that doesn't want to at least try to make everything work, you figure, why should I keep doing that? Why should I have this radio transmit 3,000 times a month? But everybody enjoys it, and I enjoy that people get to use it. And again, I always thank Dan KV3FCZ for, I mean, his tower, his antenna, his power, and all that stuff. So we've kind of got a joint thing there. But then he has a great location up there, and that's what we needed. I remember when I turned that on up there, I didn't tell anybody I was going to move it. And I got a call for Frank N3FOR got on the radio one day. I didn't really even know him, but he knew that I was experimenting. He goes, "What just happened?" He goes, "I have coverage everywhere. It shows me everywhere I'm driving now." He said, "I had so many problems. I'd go in this hollow and it didn't work. I'd go here, it didn't work." I said, "Well, I moved the transmitter that was in my house. It's a lot higher now." So that's all I have. I don't know that I'll be able to hear anybody at home if they had any questions, or if Marty can relay. So we'll open that up if anybody wants to ask anything, or maybe people are sleeping by now.
No. There'd be.
You can probably share.
You turn off your speaker. You mute your speaker. Mute your microphone. Your speaker.
The microphone's in here, yeah.
I can still hear you in here.
Okay. Well.
Okay. Anybody out there in Zoom land hear us? No. Yes. Folks, you can hear us?
I can hear mumblings and stuff. Curt still indicates that he's muted.
Yeah, but it's not coming through his microphone. Go ahead and talk, Curt.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so you can talk to the group there, Curt. Anybody have any questions for Curt?
Maybe I can answer. Like I always tell people, I'm not an expert, but I took my lumps on enough of this stuff